Where on earth do you start with adopting AI as a care provider? Studies show that if your leadership team isn't using AI and talking about it knowledgeably, the rest of your organization is far less likely to adopt it in a meaningful and effective way. In this episode, I'm joined by Eric Bai, an AI consultant who works across sectors to help organizations use AI to not just be more efficient, but also to amplify their own unique points of difference. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me. Forward
As
to
you
chatting.
know, I'm a big fan of your writing, particularly on LinkedIn. I just think it's very engaging and accessible. Just tell us a bit about your kind of background, because I know you have a background across startups, operations, and some AI implementation stuff. So yeah, how did you get here?
Yeah, I mean, my first job in tech was for an AI startup in Berlin back in 2012. Got me really interested in the space. We had AGI meetups before they were cool, and after
I
that,
mean,
moved
just
back to Kent.
I'm gonna just stop you even there. Like, what would that have looked like? What would AI have looked like in 2012?
So worked for a startup, worked with neuroscientists to predict what people would see when they came to a website. So they did eye tracking studies, and then they would create kind of a predictive algorithm so that when you're designing a website, you could, rather than going and having to test at people actually looking at it, you could just upload a screenshot and you could see what people could see. So can they see kind of what your website's about, why it matters, and where they should go next?
Right.
So a huge thing for kind of really interesting democratizing decision making, where design was traditionally very, very subjective. Suddenly you could quantify decisions. And back in 2012, I don't know if you'll remember, but a lot of corporate and enterprise websites were everyone putting everything on the front page. So they were
Yeah. The
messy,
carrot, the
not designed for
slider.
conversion. Yeah, like sliders of 20 slides. You'd have
Yeah.
every division in an entire company fighting for space on the front page. So just, all right, everyone wins. Everyone gets a slot on the front page. You open up the front page to 40 different value propositions. And this was an interesting way to kind of use data to democratize that type of decision making.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
Please
no, no
continue.
problem. After that, back to Canada, where I was running product and operations for a number of different startups and e-commerce, Internet of Things. First full-time employee at a fintech company, launched the first product. And then about 7 years ago, I moved out to the UK, into digital transformation within enterprise. So very different from startup world, but similar in a lot of ways as well, helping customers, whether internal or external, get value from data and technology. So when ChatGPT came out, I was at a startup again and saw it was going to change everything. Everything I've been doing previously was all about trying to get technology that was easy for people to use, that would help them move quicker, would add some kind of value. And AI just was previously inaccessible to most small and medium sized businesses. They didn't have the talent, they didn't have the data quality. So I made that a big part of my role there. And when they got acquired, I decided to start my own company. So as you mentioned, I'm working across lots of different sectors, everything from kind of helping leadership understand how AI works and what it means for the organization, to doing kind of hands-on training and workshops and implementation, doing some fun, fast prototyping. Really, really huge mix, broad range of
Mm,
things, which was kind of my goal. I'd wanted to stay as broad as possible because there's so many different, really fascinating
yes.
ways that it fits into different organizations.
Okay. Great. So what I want to do to start with, I'm just interested in, yeah, how you go into an organization, like your whole process really. Because there'll be folks listening, they might be thinking, perhaps I should get someone in to talk to me about these things. Like, what's your process? How do you approach it?
Yeah, so I generally start with a leadership workshop when I'm talking to prospective clients. The two main things that they care about is like either we're not sure what this is about or if we should care, or we know we should care, but we know we need help to move faster and make sure we're actually getting value out of the technology. So when it comes to working together, I think being able to make informed decisions about the future, but as well as how we engage is really important. So generally start with that leadership workshop. After that, move into more team specific training. Got a number of clients where I'm doing a day, anywhere from a day a week to a day a month on site, working kind of alongside teams. Sometimes that's mini training sessions, sometimes it's workshops, sometimes it's types of like little hackathons, sometimes it's a whole bunch of little projects. Basically being there to help them accelerate their journey, so they're not having to work out everything from first principles on their own.
Yeah, and this could be really give me some examples of the types of company, the types of sector, just so people don't, because I'm guessing they're not all IT providers.
No, no. So agency space, e-commerce space, professional services has been a big one. The training space, a little bit of everything. Working with a company specializing in glass and facades at the moment. An
Okay.
interesting project. So
Wow.
yeah, it tends to be a big mix, and because I end up working really closely, getting quite in deep with their products and their services and their plans and their strategy, I almost have to be across different sectors because it wouldn't make sense for me to go and work with their direct competitors because I'm doing a lot more than going in and
Okay.
just kind of explaining this is how AI works and kind of doing that education bit. We tend to get pretty deep on kind of strategy and processes and products and services.
Okay. So let's go back, yeah, to that first sort of engagement when you're first working with leadership. So would that be, do you particularly do that with, say, a leadership team of sort of half a dozen? Do you just start with the number one person? And I guess what are some, you've already told us a bit, but yeah, what are some, uh, I guess, particular mindsets that you come across at a point?
Yeah, I mean, it's all different and really depends what the client's looking for. I've done leadership sessions where they brought in everyone that was in leadership role across a whole organization. So we two groups of 11 at one company. That gets it gets trickier when it's broad and people's duties are there's less overlap. Um, and I've done it down to, yeah, like a single individual as well within an organization just to help them start. And as far as mindsets goes, leadership is it's always a mix. Everyone has completely different thoughts and feelings about AI. I think the way I like to describe it is it's not your traditional like software procurement process or implementation process. You don't spin up a new Salesforce implementation and have like existential nightmares about the future. Um, so, but
It's
I
so
find,
loaded, isn't it? Yeah, there's just so much
yeah,
public discourse around it. Go on, carry
yeah, but I've been really impressed with a lot of the leadership teams I've speak to because the leadership teams tend to be the most curious people in the organization.
on.
They're thinking really forward, but they're also very objective driven. So it's a mix of that fun, strategic kind of casting out and saying, right, well, how is this going to change things to actually hear particular objectives and problems that we need to solve? So how can we apply AI today to do that?
Mm.
Um, and it's the people that really that have that curiosity mindset. I find it doesn't tend to matter whether or not they've used AI a lot in the past. I've had some of the best performing workshop attendees where they get it really quick, have never really used AI at all before. Where some of the people that kind of struggle to context switch and move beyond how they use it today are the people that use it the most. So it's really a huge mix, and every group is different. They all play off each other differently, uh, but it's always
That's
always
really
an exciting and
interesting.
fun conversation.
Yeah. No, that is super interesting though, that it's about, I guess, yeah, coming back to that mindset thing of people who are, yeah, able to think strategically, people who are like real visionaries and creative thinkers rather than, yeah, someone who's in the weeds with AI. And what do you have like a particular sort of framework that you use to kind of start out?
Yeah, it's not necessarily a framework, but I think it is all building a foundation of knowledge and skills so that they're not only learning like how to prompt, but they understand at base level kind of how it works, where the risks are, so that I'm giving enough information that they can make decisions about it and navigate it into the future. Because what I taught a year ago is now quite different in a lot of ways to kind of where things are going now. But my goal is to make sure that the people I taught a year ago, as those things continue to change and evolve, can navigate that space more independently
Mm,
where it makes sense and where it's possible.
Yes.
So that kind of foundation of how it works, where those risks are, then where it fits into processes and within the company, getting people to think a little bit beyond kind of like, all right, we'll take our existing process and we'll just stick AI into it. But getting people to think a bit more creatively around actually what does AI mean for this process? How can we deliver more value? And then getting people hands on, whether it's building agents or writing prompts, or building entire workflows and solving particular problems. It all depends on kind of what the kind of key objectives of the client were as well.
Yeah, I can see how it quite quickly, like you're saying, once you're into an organization, yeah, those initial parts of education, safety, um, and how they approach it, kind of like you're saying, that of like teaching them to fish, not giving them an AI fish, but then, yeah, go on. I can see you're gonna,
No, I was just gonna say it's such a general purpose tool. The fact that it can fit almost
yeah,
everywhere, and that is so incredibly fast, and there's so many different products and services out there. It's an almost infinitely broad topic, such like a general purpose technology, uh, that it can be a lot in 4 hours. But once they get a taste for it, and they start thinking and making those connections. There's never any shortage of things they want to do together, or that they can run off and do on their own as well.
yeah. I suppose my mind it immediately goes. I think obviously I'm focused particularly on the care sector, care providers. Uh, they're often in a place where there's a lot of overwhelm. Perhaps they're trying to put in, they're still they're working with lots of systems, lots of SaaS tools, and trying to figure out how to keep them all working together, or just finding practical ways to keep going. Often, uh, they might very often not have a lot of headspace, I suppose, to really engage with AI that way. Like, how would you help them to, yeah, how would you approach that kind of client?
I mean, the headspace thing, it applies across all the industries. It's definitely the most difficult part, and especially if you're working on something slightly more complex, because that if you don't have time to learn it and apply it and experiment, and that have that cognitive capacity, it definitely can make things difficult because it's something that people do have to learn, and they have to use it to learn how it applies to their work. So on one side, really encourage everyone to, I guess, the first really big simple tip. Every time you open a tab, have it open the AI tool of your choice. So it's always there. That's one way to start building that habit, and it starts to naturally weave its way into your workflows like that.
Mhm.
Making sure that you have some time set aside, whether it's 10 minutes a week or a day a week. Everyone approaches it differently, but it does take kind of deciding to invest in that time, because it doesn't just happen. It doesn't happen automatically. And one of the biggest kind of pieces of resistance I get from organizations is, look, we're just too busy. Well, like you're never not, no one's ever not busy.
Yeah.
So it takes some intention to build that time in. And from a leadership perspective, they need to decide what time is appropriate, what they can get away with, where they can maybe focus that time. So they're going to get they're most likely to get some efficiency gains to earn some of that time back. And then rather than applying some of those efficiency gains in that time you free up into more education. But all different companies handle it in all different ways. So you have Zapier, when AI first came out, for example, they saw what it was going to mean for their company. They closed the company for an entire week and just had like a company-wide hackathon to see what they could do with the technology. Obviously, very different from the care space, where people are working with a lot of legacy systems. So there's a whole spectrum of opportunities, but I think just really encouraging people to make sure that they are playing with it and experimenting with it. And the final thing I really try to get people to focus on as well is really encouraging people to use it in their personal lives. When you see a use case in your personal life, it's really easy to start context switching and making those connections with where that fits in work
Mhm.
wise. Because as soon as you start seeing where it's going to add value, understanding how it can get value, then suddenly that justifies a little bit of time to work out that prompt or to work out that kind of new AI augmented workflow.
Yeah. I really like that simple tip of always having a tab open because I guess just you think of the million times a day that you go, let me Google that. And if you just think, okay, if I'm not using AI, let's start there, as simple as that
Exactly.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes a big difference because I have heard as well, especially when teams are feeling really busy, that I'll do a follow up session. I do now do mandatory follow up sessions after my workshops to kind of, as a reminder, everyone commits to what they're going to do, and then 2 weeks later, hop on a call and everyone explains what they've been doing. Because I did find that people were feeling too busy and they would kind of forget about it. But if they want to kind of keep what they learned fresh and start applying it right away, building those habits immediately are really important.
Yes. I really like that. So, yeah, lovely. Tell me about like we're touching a lot on leadership here. Have you got any other just thoughts on what does good leadership around AI really look like?
Yeah, so I mean, good leadership around AI, there's a few main key points. One is making sure the vision is clear. People understand what it means for the organization. If there's not a clear vision for what they intend to do with the technology, it can be scary and intimidating for a lot of people. There's a lot of, I mean, mostly sensational headlines at the moment when it comes to AI's impact on the job market, and I don't think we're seeing much of that happening in the UK yet. And almost every company I talk to, they're actually much more focused on we want to free up people's time so we can do all of these things where we want to deliver more value for our customers. No one has a shortage of ideas and the ways they can use that time. So like that clear vision is really important. Having a clear policy also really critical. Another one of the biggest pieces of friction I see within an organization when it comes to adoption is people not knowing what they can and can't do. And as soon as there's uncertainty on whether a task is something they can do, or even just an increased cognitive load on making a decision on whether or not they can use AI for a task, they'll often default to either not using it or default to hiding their usage. And as soon as that usage is hidden, the value to the organization is hidden. All the stuff that you're learning is hidden. You don't
Yeah.
want to bring in a new technology into your company and have every individual within the business figuring everything out on their own from first principles and then not actually sharing it. So technically,
Mhm.
you're investing a ton of time into education and experimentation, whether you know it or not. And if you want to get value from that time and a return on investment from that time, you want people to feel comfortable with sharing it. And a clear policy is really important there. And finally, leaders need to be using it. They need to be talking to people about how they're using it, showing people, look, I tried this the other day,
Yeah.
whether it's in their personal life or in their work life, and kind of leading by example. And we're seeing really interesting studies coming out again and again where leadership effectively using AI and leading by example leads to far stronger adoption, getting way more value from the technology, where leadership that don't use it tend to go up to people and say, oh, can we just use AI for this? But I think that sometimes it's really clear that they're not actually using it themselves. So they don't understand the
Mm,
limitations of the tools or the technology that suddenly leads people to be kind of resistant, or when it comes to them talking about their AI vision or priority of building AI into the business, as soon as people realize there's a contradiction there, they don't understand, they're going to slow down.
yeah.
I think finally, you want to be confident that your leadership are making good decisions about the future. And if they don't understand AI and they're not using it on a daily basis, your confidence in that leadership making those decisions effectively in a way that means that the company is going to be secure and your job in the future is going to be secure, can
Mm.
be a bit scary, kind of feeling like being a bus and there's no driver.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of good point. There's a lot of parts to that you're sharing. I mean, go right back to that first one around policy. Do you often help companies write an AI policy? Is that part of what you end up doing?
Yeah. Don't, I guess my usual asterisks upon everything. No, nothing I give is legal advice. Not a lawyer. Yeah. Helping companies with policy is a big part of what I do. And I think there's different ways to look at policy as well. You have your traditional policy, which is a giant list of this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. But policy should also be, especially AI policies, I think should be looked at as an opportunity for empowerment. Set it's this AI policy is really the first official AI document that your organization is receiving. It should be used to set the tone, encourage and
Mm.
empower people to experiment, give people a really quick and easy path to helping them make fast decisions on whether something's allowed or not. Don't bury stuff in paperwork and think of it more as kind of multiple tiers within your policy. You want to make sure people are using the technology safely, but you also want to make sure the organization is getting value out of it, that people feel heard, that they have somewhere to go to ask questions. They understand what that policy means to them. And it will be a living document as well. Things are moving so quickly. It's not something that you're going to write once,
Yeah.
and then leave. So when I'm helping organizations make a policy, a lot of the time it's about not just giving a clear static list of rules for covering every single process in a business, because that's important. It's really about a decision framework and making sure that their employees know how to make those decisions and what's important about them.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Okay, that's really great. Um, have you seen it? I guess just one other little point. I'm just interested if you see folks even just spreading the policy well, like literally where do they put it? And is there any good examples of how they've done that?
Um, yeah, so I mean, I think when the policy is combined with actually talking to people about what it means, why it matters, the policy should be backed up with some sort of education. Because often a policy will roll out before people have gotten some sort of introduction to AI. And when people don't understand AI, it can be initially quite intimidating or scary or sound incredibly technical. So combining the AI policy with some sort of like basic introduction, I find makes sure it has the biggest impact. It helps manage the risk more effectively,
Hmm.
but also helps manage nerves. 'Cause if you drop out an AI policy out of nowhere, it's going to be a little bit triggering for many.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Um, all right, let's go a little bit more. We've done lots of around yeah, policy and education. Let's perhaps go a little bit now into the implementation side.
Yeah.
Um, tell us about that. Like, how do you get that balance between quick stuff and the longer term thinking? Yeah, just go for it.
Yeah, I mean it's different with every organization has been completely different. I think one thing is that a lot of the time when I talk to especially leadership teams, they pick the biggest, chunkiest problem that would mean a complete rebuild of their entire like organizational system. They want like AI driven ERP. Look, that's great. You're being really ambitious here. But a quick win doesn't have to be a small win. And so it's really starting with those quick wins. Where can AI just fit into simple tasks and processes without needing to change technology, without needing to procure complicated new tools? And where just a bit of education and brainstorming can help people start getting value from it immediately. It kind of builds on that foundation of knowledge and skills, so that as people start to approach more complex processes and more complex workflows, they have the prompting skills. They're starting to make all those connections where it fits and where it fits well today, and maybe some of those places where it might not fit as well.
Mm.
So often in workshops I'm doing, we have a session where people kind of go around and they kind of brainstorming groups and then present back to the other attendees kind of where they see it fitting within their workflows. And that's usually kind of the first starting point where they start to experiment with that. Um, After that, sometimes we look at kind of where's actual time being spent? What are the actual objectives? What are the levers that we're trying to pull, improve different particular types of metrics? Because it's really easy to have a solution in search of a problem. A lot of people go in and say, like, for example, how can we use AI to automate our customer service? Uh, and like, do you really want to automate your customer service for an average experience? Like, how instead it should be how can we use AI to improve the customer experience? And the first part of that isn't automating responses to questions people shouldn't have to ask. It's understanding all the questions, using AI to understand all the questions people are asking, and thinking about how can you create a better experience so people get that information at the right time, or don't have to
Mm.
ask that question, or don't experience that problem. So you're really kind of aligning it rather than we saw people are using AI for customer support, therefore we want to use AI for customer support. Instead, it's actually we want to improve our customers' experience. What are all the different ways that we can use AI to increase the value that we're delivering to our customers? Uh, and
Yeah.
then from a like process implementation side, a lot of times just a project helping people kind of, all right, here's the way that I see it as a person, as an external person that doesn't necessarily understand the depths of your process. Like they're the expert in what they do. I'm just there to help them leverage AI for it. So kind of setting those projects up to be really quick and scrappy to say, all right, here's what you're going to test today. Here's some example prompts. Come back in a day or a week. see how that's going, help them adjust that process, help them identify as well where it can add new value, thinking beyond we we're gonna do the process the same way we always done it because 20 years ago Bob set up this process when he was really busy and no one's looked at it again since. So,
Yeah.
there's many different ways to approach it, but like making sure it's quick and tactical, especially in the early days. People see that value right away, they engage right away, and you get that ROI to justify that further investment right away.
Yes. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, that is so good to just be thinking about, stop thinking about a solution and stepping back and just finding where AI might help. I think um I'm just interested, obviously, again going back to the care sector and obviously the data privacy being such a huge thing. It's so high stakes. Like I'm just curious if you've worked with an organization that has those kind of challenges, and if they're, so any thoughts? Do you find yourself helping a lot in terms of guiding people on developing good governance frameworks?
Yes, as far as I can without crossing the line into legal advice. I think every organization that I've worked with has some level of concern or some type of information. Some of them have really incredibly intense NDAs with their clients. I received an NDA the other day that was clearly written for pre-cloud software, and using Google for work would have been meant that I was in breach of that non-disclosure agreement. Um, and a lot of time it comes down to what their risk profile is and what their agreements are with their customers. Microsoft tends to be the easiest one for people to approve because they've written it in such a way that it fits within their organization. Where OpenAI and Anthropic and Google to a certain amount haven't done the best job at communicating how their privacy policy and security policies apply, particularly within the EU and the UK when it comes to things like GDPR. That said, I think they've all got really strong commercial terms, and I'm personally quite confident in them. But it tends to be helping guide the decision makers in that process to really understand the technology. Because I find a lot of those early governance concerns all stem from misconceptions about how the technology works. Like, especially in the early days, a lot of people came to me and they said, "Well, how can we prove this? Yeah, if I put information in, it's always going to be learning and training on that information, and then other people are going to have access to it." It's not actually how it was working. So again, leadership, education being a really key thing when it comes to those governance frameworks.
Mm.
And then once we've got a clear idea of the risks and the limitations and how they want to approach it, making sure that people can really easily understand what the policy means, how to make decisions if they find something the policy doesn't cover, who they should go to ask questions, and making sure that they've got an internal SLA for getting those questions answered. Because again, if people have a clear person to go to ask a question for, they don't get an answer for a week. A lot of the time, these aren't formal projects like you would normally have going through like a clear decision making process. Someone just wants to say, "I want to try this prompt on this process. Can I do it?" And it should be a quick yes or no. But if there's too much friction there, it slows people down too much. Then they won't do it. They'll stop engaging. They'll stop connecting with different things, and their usage will just go down. But it must be really difficult in the healthcare sector where people are. Do you find that people in the healthcare sector just are those misconceptions about, or are there just some like hard and fast rules that are genuinely difficult to navigate with the likes of Copilot?
Yeah, I think there's definitely as you'd expect, like a whole range. And you've got perhaps often smaller providers who are kind of very switched on and would have, be using ChatGPT, in a Teams and have all those sort of things you're saying in terms of, good education and understanding among the team. I think, there's a growing, or there certainly seems like there will be a growing market for having something that is either like a, yeah, kind of co-pilot SharePoint solution or something that is just completely your own sort of personal ChatGPT, as it were.
Yeah.
And I think I think that'll probably be where it goes for the care sector, over the next couple of years.
Yeah, makes sense. On the flip side, like a huge risk at the moment is that the policies for consumer products are getting worse, and everyone's still using. If you saw OpenAI's new study last week on how people are using AI, and they only looked at personal plans. A lot of people on those personal plans are using it for work.
Yeah.
If you look at Meta's new glasses, they're allowed to train on images, picture that you take. So people are going to be trying to wear those Meta glasses to the workplace,
Uh-huh.
sitting at home and working from home. Uh, and Gemini, like personal Gemini accounts, they've got zero privacy policy unless you decide to lose your the whole chat history. So
Mhm.
it's, I think, on that governance side as well, like making sure you give people access to something, like something that's safer than what they're going to
Yeah.
use anyways, is so important.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a huge thing of it is just being used. There's document examples of people, putting in client details to produce a care
Yeah,
plan, and you can imagine.
yeah, definitely. But on the other side, it's the amount of value it can provide in the care space is crazy. Um,
Yeah.
I've had it give life-saving advice after receiving bad advice from a doctor, in
Yeah,
one
tell
scenario.
that story actually, because we spoke about that before.
Yeah, so we went to the doctor on a Sunday. They were incredibly busy. Uh, kind of, they said they gave advice for my partner and said, "Go away, take this for 2 weeks, and if you still have issues, come back." And I had talked to ChatGPT, put in place all of the history, and it turned out that he hadn't read their chart and he hadn't asked, like, talked to the nurse about what was going on at all. Uh, And it turned out if we'd followed that advice, there was a risk of death. And he followed my advice, so ChatGPT's advice instead. And ChatGPT was right. And again, you're hearing all these stories. And people in the healthcare space are so pressed for time. So that ability to get support on decision making is just has there's an incredible amount of potential to have such a huge positive impact, uh, while still being a bit of a slippery slope as far as people continuing to have those skills to make the decisions in the future. Um, it's a bit of a catch-22 or a tricky one to balance on that side.
Yes. Yeah. You've got that classic thing of, using AI. It gives you all this incredible knowledge and answers, and then inevitably at some point it tells you completely the wrong thing. And yeah, like you're saying, you're still having that expert who can 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 read it and spot the bad stuff. Um, yeah, that I mean that whole the medical field and care, like you say, there's so much to sort of think about that, but I'll go out of my depth if I go into that anymore.
One thing I'm really curious about in the medical space, and I don't know what you think about this, is I personally can see a scenario where it becomes mandatory for doctors to check their advice with AI before
Yeah,
giving it. Um, but the difficult part there is they've also found that doctors that are using AI to support them start to lose the sharpness and ability to give that advice.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
You said a little bit earlier as well about your experience with the. It sounds like I'm jumping all over the place, and I often do, but in this case,
No, no,
it
it's all good.
is linked. Um, Experience with the North Ants Council project, um, and there was a kind of interesting point you made around that. I guess give us a bit of background about what that project was, and then say a bit
Yeah,
more.
so we're doing some community training, kind of organized through Digital Northlands, with some different groups. So one was focused on care leavers, and refugees, and how they can use AI to help them just in general with life. And one of the things that I found really fascinating about that was there's a lot of awareness when it came to being really careful about how you use AI in a way that it doesn't hurt your own ability to develop those skills and make decisions for yourself in the future. A lot of maturity when it came to thinking about it, like more so than I often see in organizations where partially because people are time stressed, like, all right, I just got to check this into AI and crack on with the next thing, where they're being very, very kind of intentional about their usage quite often, even to a point that they're avoiding using it where it might actually be helpful, uh, because they're deciding to be more cautious. So it's just really made me feel a lot more optimistic when you see all the headlines about people just using AI to cheat, where these are people that are from quite disadvantaged backgrounds, in very difficult places, and they're actively choosing to think more rather than taking that shortcut.
That's so
So
interesting, isn't it? And it's like, because that's a bit of it's a kind of a student mentality, isn't it? Like we're kind of saying to our kids, or students rather, like, yeah, use it, but don't just get the answer off there, and they're taking that approach on into life.
yes, I mean, I think they're receiving a mixture of advice. I often also talk to students who are being told that don't use AI for anything ever. It's cheap no matter how you use it. In those scenarios, it's quite unfortunate because they're not being told about the positive ways to use it. It's kind of, all right, it's all or nothing. So they start to use it and they just use it for everything, where if they got taught that more intentional piece. So I hope we start seeing more kind of specific or well considered guidance from educational institutions and even businesses as well on how people should be using it. Uh, I've had numerous discussions where people are looking at using AI for a certain process, but that process is actually really key to how their more junior employees develop a particular set of skills so they can
Yes.
move into more senior roles. And whether you're a student or you're just someone looking for recipes and want to make sure you get better at cooking and understanding those things, or you're an organization that needs that pipeline of staff learning a particular set of skills, sometimes you want to sacrifice a little bit of efficiency to make sure that you're developing and kind of honing and maintaining the skills that are important to you.
Yeah. Let's just curious, we didn't quite finish off that point around the Northouts Council. So you had this group of, yeah, care leavers, refugees. What were some examples of the kind of things they were using AI for?
Yeah, so translation was a big one. There's a lot of paperwork going through, and not just translating from a different language to English, but even from an English perspective, translating
Yes,
kind of dense paperwork into something that
bureaucracy.
people can understand better. Helping them kind of again, helping them with homework was a big one. Helping them understand policies, budget. We went into using it to make like kind of help people make recipes. But then going beyond recipes and saying, I have a budget. How do I create a meal plan? Interesting things, but while kind of keeping budget low. So helping stretch those things out, whether it's making
Mm.
stuff that's going to have interesting leftovers that can be reused. Um, and I think people using it for fun as well. Whether it's kind of planning what to do, creating art and images, getting help and learning. One person that I was talking to, he was learning how to kind of go into video production essentially, and learning how to use those tools when they didn't have access to kind of formal training. They couldn't afford the online courses. So things like that where can have a massive, massive impact and really allow them to get personal tutoring on any topic. And just I think people often think about tutoring and coaching within the confines of like a class and academia. And really, you can use it to learn to get better at almost anything. And especially young people are curious and passionate about what they're doing. So having that tool available for them, especially when they didn't have other places to go and navigating the internet could be a nightmare. It's been clearly been kind of starting to have a huge impact in those spaces.
So I guess with a group like that, are you? I'm just curious, like, what devices? Like, did you just show them how to basically? They've got their phone, and you're letting them use it on their phone a lot.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting one. Initially, we're going to try and get people to download like ChatGPT, but there wasn't really an appetite, and that kind of added too much friction. So going straight to like AI on WhatsApp and AI within kind of Meta's Messenger. more people had Android phones, so some people already had Gemini on there, but really just focused on it. You can access it anywhere. Give them a couple pointers about Meta's AI approach is you have to be more careful from a privacy perspective and a sycophancy perspective. But it was really about, all right, here's all the places that AI lives, and here are all the different ways you can use it. Keeping it really platform and tool agnostic turned out to be really important, and was took a quick pivot from my side, kind of changing gears from
Yeah.
businesses to people that just wanted to be able to just use whatever is on their phone without having to take additional steps, which is fair because those tools are good enough for
Yeah.
most of the tasks that they're doing.
That's brilliant. Okay. Well, I feel like we've covered lots of stuff here. Is there anything, yeah, is there any kind of things that you feel we've not really gone into enough or that you wanted to touch on?
I think I'm just excited for the future. A lot of people think about using AI in, like, all right, I put text in, I get text out. And where we're going very, very quickly is I put a task in or I put an objective in, and it goes out and it uses different systems and tools. And I think a lot of people's mindset at the moment is text in, text out like that. And I think in the next, anywhere from the next 3 to 12 months, we're going to see a lot more actions happening across different tools with things like it being able to use a computer and navigate a computer like a person would. I'm really excited about the software and coding side. And while that might not be applicable to a lot of the different types of organizations and individuals that I work with, seeing kind of giving it a kind of product requirements document, which is a long document with lots of detail in it, and has create a plan and then take a ton of different types of actions, whether that's web search or doing its own testing, or kind of improving and fixing mistakes I had in the documentation I provided, and watching it work for up to 2 minutes on its 200 minutes on its own. Um, I think that's going to have a far bigger impact than people realize, because so much of what people are doing within chat is so limited by the context they can provide, their ability to kind of take the information out of that system and take action in different systems where suddenly it might not add as much value. And as soon as these tools can start taking actions in those systems, it's really going to open up all the different ways that people can use it. And it's going to be kind of take stretching of some mindsets, and it can all feel really intangible. So I'm really waiting for the first big example to kind of go viral, like a new ChatGPT moment, but for tools that can do longer horizon tasks.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to be really important for like businesses that are thinking about the future. A lot of them go in thinking about, all right, like eh, thinking about ChatGPT and thinking about some other basic use cases, and they're not thinking about a future that's going to be very different in 12 months, where these systems can use any software because they can navigate it from a computer, for example.
Yes. I guess do you have any advice on like how to, because yeah, like you say, that's going to happen pretty soon. Um, it'll be pretty scary to, to a lot of people. And like giving like control of my computer and all my stuff. Like, do you have just any quick advice on how to think about that?
Make sure you have controls in place. The security isn't, um, and I guess it depends on how you're thinking about it. If you're in leadership thinking about the future, don't make sure you're making decisions based on like a variety of different types of scenarios. Um, it's challenging. I'm not saying like you have to do like intense scenario plan for every possible path, but if you're looking at a project that's going to take 12 months and require you to create new connections between a whole bunch of different types of software and hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds to build that, when in 12 months, if it can just do this in a limited environment, maybe we should be thinking more about that instead. Um, as like from an individual perspective, I think just thinking about mapping out what your processes look like and what might be possible in that future, because it is just going to change and change quickly. Um, and I think the best way to manage and be comfortable with that change is to be able to understand it
Yeah.
and be able to be the person in your organization that can get value from it, whether you're frontline or leadership, because most organizations are lacking that sort of that person that wants to take that torch. And there's so many different, you can't take every single process within your business turn into an individual project. It'll take 10 years, and within those 10 years, everything will have changed 10 more times.
Yeah.
So that ability to move quickly and have those people that understand it and don't fear it is really important.
Yeah. I feel like I think we can't go down this rabbit hole, but I think, yeah, just that point you just touched on of procurement and helping companies like just think about that with the right, again, time horizon is.
It's going to be really interesting. I think it's a really exciting time for those small and medium-sized businesses.
Yes.
I did a talk on this last week where you have your traditional enterprise businesses that take some 12 months to make a procurement decision. And at the beginning of that scoping, even the product managers and salespeople within the companies that they're talking to don't necessarily know what the product's going to be doing in 12 months or how it's going to be built in 12 months or whether you buy today it's going to be compatible. And then it takes another 1 to 2 years to actually implement it. So how do you make those decisions and quick enough that you can always be taking advantage of that, of the best of what's out there? I think it's where small
Mm.
and medium-sized businesses can build those muscles to be more adaptive and adaptable and agile. Because if they can really start moving quicker, that scale is going to matter a lot less than your ability to just swap something out quick or take advantage of the next new capability that comes along quickly.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. You you've got me excited there. My last question, do you ever watch the or do you ever listen to as quite a well-known podcast, WTF, Mark Maron? He's like a comedian. He was always talking to comedians. Anyway, he always kind of goes at the end, who are your guys? Like who are you who are your uh I'm sure he does, people can say men and women, but yeah, who are your like comedians that you love? And I'm just interested, yeah, who are your kind of AI folks saying interesting stuff that you follow?
Yeah, so I think Ethan Mollick, he's one of the most, I think, grounded people in the space. I think the challenge with AI space at the moment is nuance doesn't perform on social media. So a lot of people just like to be quite sensational. And Ethan's very well informed. He does great things in the education space. He understands the business space really well. Aaron Levy from Box, he talks a lot more forward looking. And while he does have an AI company, the way he talks about AI and the way he's thinking about things make a lot of sense, I think. And he's very good at kind of being quite well balanced on that front. There's a couple Australian guys, if you like something slightly more technical, called This Day in AI. And they're just funny. They're hilarious.
Okay.
They do stupid stuff with AI, but they also talk through things like MCPs and connectors, and they're building and having some fun with it. When a new model comes out, the way they benchmark it is they have it write a diss track about all the other AI models, and they generate a song with it. And then there's the artificial intelligence show that used to be the marketing artificial intelligence show, and they do a really good job of covering. Is it super accessible for non-technical people? They're really insightful about the space, and again, they approach it with the kind of nuance that I think the space really needs a lot more of.
Yes. Okay. I'm really glad I asked you that question. Okay, that's some great. I'm particularly interested in the funny Aussies because I find, yeah, it's nice to have some humor with my learning.
Yeah, exactly. It can be a lot. At one stage, I was listening to about 5 6 hours of podcasts a day. Just sped up to 2x, so I had enough time to get through them all. And yeah, having one that was funny once a week was kind of
Yeah.
like a breath of fresh air on a Friday.
Okay, that's brilliant. All right. Thank you so much, Eric. It's been fantastic.
Thanks,
Okay.
Dave. Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Well, that's it for today. I'm David Mance, founder of Frank Care Marketing, and I hope you join me again next time for AI in social care.